In the Impact segment tonight, Russian hacking and the U.S. election. Today, a long-awaited declassified intelligence report was released. It fingers Russian President Vladimir Putin for ordering a campaign to influence the U.S. election, including cyber attacks against the DNC and other party officials. A short time ago, I spoke with Donald Trump counselor Kellyanne Conway about the report and Donald Trump's classified briefing today on the subject. But first, we address today's events in Fort Lauderdale. Okay, Kellyanne, can we get your response, your reaction to the Fort Lauderdale shooting earlier today?
Well, it's a tragedy, and the president-elect has been in touch with Governor Rick Scott of Florida. The president-elect is monitoring the situation, has expressed his condolences and his support for those who have lost loved ones, those who are injured, certainly. And it's just a very sad day whenever this happens. Yeah,
and we can point out that the president-elect did contact Rick Scott within maybe minutes, maybe an hour or so after the suspect was apprehended. Meanwhile, if you remember back the Orlando shooting, the Pulse nightclub shooting, the massacre of 49 people, I think Governor Scott complained the following day that he had not yet heard from President Obama.
I do recall that slightly, and I do think it's important for the President of the United States, in this case it will be Donald Trump soon, to take swift action and make sure that we're always in touch with the first responders, the elected officials in a given state, and that is in fact what the President-elect did today in calling Governor Scott. We know that security is porous in some of these common areas, but that aside, I think we just all join together at moments like this and feel the tragedy as one. And this is at the time that the president-elect was having his about to have his security briefing, his intelligence briefing today, but he took the time to call Governor Scott and to make that connection to offer support and prayers.
Let's talk a little bit about that briefing. Now, this document, there's a classified document that became declassified earlier today. You know, I'm reading through it, Kellyanne, and it looks like the Intel department, the heads of Intel squarely put the blame on Russia, and they're actually saying that Russia was attempting to influence our elections.
So we learned two things today. One is that the DNC ignored the FBI's request to turn over their server to give them information. They ignored those requests, and they just failed to have the proper defense hacking mechanisms in place that would have prevented this from happening. The Russians also tried to hack into the RNC, but the RNC had a much better system, in large part because their Republican presidential nominee Donald J. Trump insisted that they do, and so that was impenetrable. We also see that Russian hacking, there's hacking, China hacks, Russia hacks, but the question is, what was the net effect of it? And did this influence the outcome of the election? Did one vote move because of this? And there is no clear evidence of that.
Well, can I read, Kellyanne, a little bit from that document that we learned? It says, and I'm quoting, "We assess Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered an influence campaign in 2016 aimed at the U.S. presidential election. Russia's goals were to undermine public faith in the U.S. democratic process, denigrate Secretary Clinton, and harm her electability and potential presidency, and we have a high confidence in these judgments." You know, it certainly sounds like it's political to me. Am I wrong?
No, we feel that way as well. We certainly don't want intelligence interfering with politics, and we don't want politics interfering with intelligence. But when the president-elect said earlier today to the New York Times that this seems like the focus is a political witch hunt, what he means is exactly that why are we talking about this now? If Mr. Clapper said what he said in October, Eric, and the president of the United States basically didn't say much about it, Hillary Clinton mentioned it at a debate, but you didn't see the $1.2 billion the Clinton campaign spent going toward ads and public service announcements warning everybody that this is going to affect the outcome of the election. Why? Because they thought she was going to win. And it's only after she did not win that they've been all in a froth about this. So making very clear we're against any foreign government interfering in our nation. That is very clear. At the same time, let's not draw a nexus where one does not exist between attempts and actual result. If anybody can tell me that Hillary Clinton lost for any reason other than she was a terrible messenger, I still don't know what her message was. Please help me out. Anybody can write to me if you know what her message was. Right. Her message was, I'm not Donald Trump, and it wasn't enough. His message was, I'm here for the forgotten man, forgotten woman. I'm going to be a tougher commander-in-chief and president of the United States.
But if the Intel department, the heads of the Intel departments are drawing that, what you call a nexus, and that therefore maybe playing politics, will Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, make sweeping changes to the leadership in Intel?
Well, the one thing that Donald Trump said today as the president-elect, I think is very important in his statement, Eric, is that he will convene his own panel, and within 90 days perhaps he'll take action. He wants to talk to his own intelligence community. He wants to talk to his own advisors about what makes sense moving forward. A lot of the people are just looking back to this election, and I am just so struck by the number of people who talk about how that the following things happened. Russia hacked and Hillary Clinton lost, and trying to pretend they're not making the nexus when in fact they are. When you see even on Fox News, it's been talked about how the DNC was hacked, the Pentagon was hacked, the White House was hacked. Why wasn't everybody in this uproar when 21 million records were hacked in our Office of Personnel and Management, basically a government organ, 21 million private confidential records of Americans? What was the punishment then? How many operatives were expelled? You know, who was up in arms? So this does smack of politics. And let me repeat, we're against any interference, but at the same time, people are trying to over-politicize this in a way. You can't get them excited to talk about hate crimes against a disabled white boy in Chicago. You can't get them excited to talk about the fact that Minority Leader Chuck Schumer has promised to obstruct every Supreme Court justice we put in front of them and slow walk our cabinet nominees, even though President Obama had 7 confirmed on Inauguration Day 2009, 5 additional that week, and 13 by the following week by voice vote. President George W. Bush had 9 of them confirmed. So that should really get this country up in arms about interfering with democracy. And let's be frank, you know who interfered with the election again and again? The mainstream media, by telling us all that Hillary Clinton was a shoo-in.
Let me ask you that along those lines. You mentioned James Clapper, DNI James Clapper. Take a listen to what he said yesterday, some of his testimony in front of on Capitol Hill.
This was a multifaceted campaign, so the hacking was only one part of it, and it also entailed classical propaganda, disinformation, fake news.
So, Kellyanne, he blamed fake news on some of this hacking and the interference in the election. Very quickly, I only have a little bit of time. We're going to bring you back after the break. But does President-elect Donald Trump and will President Donald Trump have confidence in Clapper?
Well, the president has faith in the intelligence community, but he also is putting together his own intelligence team for many reasons. Mr. Clapper has said, look, he came out in October and said something. The response from Barack Obama about Vladimir Putin and hacking earlier in the summer was, quote, knock it off. Boy, that's going to really scare somebody. Knock it off. And he's trying to be tough guy with just a couple of weeks to go in his term. So none of that rings true. The other thing that Mr. Clapper had to make clear yesterday is he had to clarify that it did not influence votes.
Right.
And that Senator Tom Cotton from Arkansas also made the point that it's Donald Trump has promised with oil and gas exploration, through modernizing our nuclear capability and our ballistic missiles, and certainly through expanding our defense budget, Eric, that he will put America in a stronger position in a way that you can argue is against Russia's, Moscow's political and economic interests.
Kellyanne,
and Donald Trump won on that platform.
Allow me to do this. I'm up against a hard break. I'd like to bring you back right after the break.
Okay, thank you.